You're on mute, Larry. Yeah.
There we go. Crypto Monday, heading into, I think, our third year. Caitlin? Yeah. I think we began in Jan 18. So we're completing our second full year. Up until February, as you may have heard, we used to meet at Consensus in the city. Virtual is probably going to be the way forward, certainly well into Q1 next year and probably until we get a vaccine. We grew out of, as most of you will probably know, the Crypto Monday group that started in New York by Lou, help me. I've had a brain freeze.
Kerner.
Yes. Sorry. And Lou is the head of Crypto Oracle, founder of Crypto Mondays, and there's now Crypto Mondays all over the world. There must be 30 or 40 of them in major cities around the world. And it's really, we're meant to be a forum for discussion about all things crypto and blockchain. I think this is we've had a lot of interesting stuff on crypto. I think this particular topic tonight will be, I think, quite interesting. Is focusing very much on blockchain and building blockchain, look forward to hearing what Gabriele has to say. I would encourage all of you to please pass the links on to your friends and colleagues, and we want to build as big a community as we can. I'm going to pass you back to Oleg and look forward to seeing you all in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Larry. And yeah, just 2 words. So first of all, big thanks as always to our sponsors, Vantage Recruitment. I think we have Alexander here if he wants to say hi. Alexander or Morgan. If not, maybe at the end. And then also, yeah, my company, Coinrule, we help people to build automated trading strategies. So we help them to catch market opportunities. We're also currently crowdfunding on Seeders, so do please check us out. And especially today, it's actually my big honor. We have my co-founder, Gabriele, presenting. And Gabriele, he's the CEO of Coinrule. He has worked at the MIT. He worked at Lloyds Banking Group, at UBS, where he built one of the world's leading trading platforms. He's been a product manager, user experience designer for many years. He's a lead mentor at Google Launchpad and also mentored Virgin Startups. And I'm gonna hand the word over to him so he can tell us more about how to build a killer product in the blockchain space.
Thank you, Oleg. I almost forgot that I did all those things. So it's like I feel old now. Yeah, I was writing my presentation and yeah, it was about killer product, but then I wanted to talk actually about how as human beings, we generate a lot of data that then the blockchains are trying to use in some business cases. So usually what happens is that before DLTs, so distributed ledger, distributed database, we had our data all over on different websites, and here and there you had some people kind of touching piece of your data that were personal, that were about your professional life. And that has been always a bit of a problem because you didn't really have control of your data. Then there was this exhibition a few years ago called Big Bang Data in London. It was like 3 years ago in the South Bank. It was really it was amazing because for the first time it brought all the good projects that several digital agencies and designers did about data visualization, data privacy, and the assumption is basically that we own our own data and we have traces that we live around the city, around our space. And in particular, there was this project from IF that it's a company from Denmark, and they started talking about data licenses. So the fact that as a human being, we can actually control our data, you can have our own personal API, and we can give our own key to the people that we want. And that was a project that was done a few years ago when still we didn't have blockchain, we didn't have this concept of giving permission and a concept of transparency on the data. So it's really relevant because if you think about every day, each of us has 250 plus interactions with some sort of interfaces. We are talking about your ATM machine, your mobile phone, your TV, your fridge, your microwave. or in everything. So all these interactions actually need to be designed by someone, and then require some data that come from the users. This data get analyzed and then get reused to improve the product, the service, but also to then be resold from a commercial point of view. And that's when the data license came in. So data license you can create on whatever action you do during the day or during like specific period of time. You can create a license to give to a third party to allow them to use your data in exchange of a price, for example, exchange of monetary reward. In this case, for example, you can see when you go abroad. So let's assume you have a bracelet and you're going somewhere on holiday for a week. You can decide at the airport where you're checking in. You can decide to actually prepare a license, and you say, I want to sell my week of data of my holiday in the Bahamas to some companies, and then you can have a list of companies that would buy the data for you for 1 week. Maybe Coca-Cola is interested in entering the market in Bahamas, so actually they will buy your data. So it's you allowing other people to buy your data. There is like a quick video how you let's go there, how you create a data license. It was very interesting. Let's see if I manage to, yeah. So this is it. So you can go there, you can go press start, you can share your location, for example, or your Oyster card, and you can actually give them all the data points or where it's been, how the data is going to be used, commercial or for charity, how long your data will be shared, always, sometimes during the day. So it gives specific permission. This is about if it's for no profit or just for everyone to use. And then also if the government can enter and understand your data. Me personally, I actually prefer when the government owns your data because it's actually for the social good. This is also about if you can anonymize or actually they can find relevant pattern to then share to third parties. Once you select these things, you have a license, there's an expiration date, and you can trade this license, you can give a price, and then a company on the other side can actually buy it or can actually do a negotiation and bet on the price. I'm sure at some point there's going to be a secondary market. Then the license in this case was printed because this was actually a demo project. But if you can think about now, I'm still looking out for some blockchain project that will adopt this use case. So what I found lately is that a lot of good blockchain projects, they have amazing technology, but they don't have any use case. But not because it's not possible, just because it's like they're like stuck in this infrastructural world and they don't really want to think out of the box. And out of the box is also the problem that you can find in several corporations, right? Thinking out of your industry. I remember I read a book that was saying that the biggest innovation in the world were born where you take some methodology, some mechanism from a domain and you move it in another domain. And I don't see this happening a lot in blockchain. I don't see that happening. And that the same behavior was also in fintech. So when I was working in one of the biggest banks in the UK, I'm sorry, I need to actually I had to actually put some black boxes and blur some images. Otherwise, I cannot share some of the project. But one of the big he had to blur all the UIs, but actually I didn't manage to blur it, but it's okay because there is no logo. By one of these innovation labs, we were doing proper agile testing, agile methodology with a lot of user testing, proper common wall. We were doing a lot of proof of concept, so small project of 2 weeks to validate specific assumption that our product manager had. And it was a very interesting moment of this bank because they were going through a big transformation. But 90% of these exercises, they were going to trash because what happened, either the amount of budget they were actually allocating were too low, either because like the strategy committee or the senior management was not able to understand like the innovation, or maybe the customer segment that was there to wait for some sort of proposition. So every time we had built like some small MVP, tested down in the branch of the bank, then we had to go around and actually fund a sponsored bank that will put down 2-3 million to actually develop the project. And that like really rarely happened. And these banks, for example, they had like this bank in particular, they had like a very interesting project like this one that comes back to the sharing of the data and using data, personal data in a different way, in a way that I think that blockchain can really utilize. So in this case, you have a bracelet on your wrist, and then you can, this bracelet actually trace your heartbeat, and that heartbeat of each person, of each of us is actually unique. So it can be like faster or slower according if you're doing sport or just resting at home, but actually the actual pattern is unique. It's like your identity key, basically. So with that one, in this scenario, we did like a prototype, and actually worked. You could easily go to the ATM machine. You can, with your arm, you can withdraw money. You can enter a specific building at your workplace. You can enter your house, and they will know that it's you. And of course, when you detach a bracelet from your arm, the system will not work anymore. So it was also very, very safe. This project also never got deployed because IoT at that moment was perceived by this big organization as something that was not related with banking. And this is also the case with the cloud banking, with the intersection of data, and especially like in these scenarios where here it was, for example, for managing personal finances. And in this case, you will see that someone is searching on Google some sort of keywords like holidays, and this specific bank, if you would have had a deal with Google, they would have understood that this customer is searching for holiday, and actually would have helped the customer to manage the personal data better by showing some alerts saying like, look, you cannot afford this, you're reaching the limit of your spending this month. Another scenario that was very interesting was this one that we end up also developing. These were the first idea and sketches. So it was about smart data. Basically, when you need to pay the mortgage, kind of catching the users when he's in transitions, basically in these times where you actually have time to spend on this like admin stuff. So in this case, the app will understand that you're on a train on the tube, and will actually trigger the message say like, look, there's a duty to do today. You have to pay your mortgage because it's almost the end of the month. And they will see that by triggering the action in a specific moment, the small nudge will actually convert much better, and they will have less delayed payment. Also, most of this bank, I had also confirmed by one other friend that was working in another bank at that point, also in the UX department, also had some proposition that looks much like one of the challenger banks, and there was like very simple proposition of having a very simple bank account. At that point, you know, like a few of these big banks would have spent literally, I don't know, 0.1% of the budget they were spending in innovation by deploying such a simple functionality, and be in the same market with the Monzo or with the Revolut, and be catching the young millennials. I mean, actually the generation X and Z. And by said they didn't do it, so they lost actually like what's now like worth around 5 to 10 million customers. And that's not just like because of the customer, but also because there is a big problem that also someone, mostly the manager, don't see that it's really long term. If I have my son that banks with Revolut, and I'm banking with, let's say, HSBC, when I die, I'm 60 years old, all the wealth is going to be moved by another bank by Revolut. So these big old banks, by catching also the young generation, help the bank kind of survive in the long term, because the wealth will stay always with that bank. And that's a very important point. Now, I saw that in the last few years now, few banks understood that, and now they're also like buying out like the challengers bank. But back in the days, they had like this proposition that could have like also innovated, but instead they were just in the box, just in their domain. And that was, of course, Monzo. Now, I'm a big fan of combinatorial innovation. That means if you don't have capabilities in your organization, or if you don't have like technical like knowledge or even resources to build stuff, if you're a fintech, a startup, if you're a crypto startup, if you're even a bank, you can work with everyone nowadays, because with the power of API, you can build whatever you want. So that was the case with N26, that actually it's till now the best challenger bank in Europe. They started with having a UI front for the customer, and on the back end interacting with a lot of different services for offering international transfer, saving accounts, insurance, etc., etc. And they only, I think, only 3 years ago, they managed to get a banking license and then to actually build their own services inside. In the meanwhile, actually, they had a position on the market. Now, so this problem that we see is that basically I'm seeing like in cryptocurrency projects and also in blockchains, that they don't bring knowledge into other domains, and that's because I've seen them. I've discussed also in some user research group, It's because most of them are driven by highly technical people, and the user guys, user research guy, user experience guys are not really involved in that process. So from my experience, what's the most valuable thing to do when you build a product is actually to turn your qualitative data that you get from the users into a product that then you can validate, and the product itself can give you other data in terms of quantitative data, and you can iterate over and over. So this is the best way to actually build killer products, I think. And I saw that in the blockchain, UX people are not yet there, and that's something now that we are trying to do also with Coinrule. So we did a mix of research methodologies. The main market research was done on the basis of this very good statistic that actually 82% of the young people want to quickly react to the market changes. And actually most of them, it's actually now more than 37% owned cryptocurrencies, more than we expected, that you would expect. At the same time, the economists as well, the big guys also acknowledge that the financial market is up to 90% managed by bots and also by big investments and hedge funds that came into the cryptocurrency game in the last few years. And that basically leave the typical investors, the typical guy with really no weapons to fight back. So basically these guys we found by doing a lot of user interviews, at least 500 of them. It's like 2 years, like we do not stop user interviews. We found that they don't have much time for manual investing. So the statistic that we were checking before about reacting to market changes, if you don't know how to actually write a piece of code and write an automatic machine, you cannot really catch these big changes. So it's about knowledge. So they don't have knowledge to write an automatic machine. They don't have the skills to understand what strategy to put in place at a specific time. And also they don't have time because of course they are not day traders, but they still want to take advantage of the volatility because the market is exciting, cryptocurrency is exciting, and they want to protect also their funds. So this was a lot of qualitative data analysis that we did. We did also a lot of qualitative, and we brought all this qualitative into segmentation that looks very interesting, but there were like several dimensions to understand how our proto persona or personas were. On the acquisition side, we also checked all the metrics from the revenue, from the traffic, and also what were the top channels bringing customers. And also another thing that I always check is also the customer success team. I call it kind of low qualitative data because it's data that comes from the chat. Usually you can categorize them into patterns, but they are very standardized. In fact, the analysis it's very quick, and usually the feedback gets repeat themselves pretty quickly. Together with then the most important of the metrics that I always check when doing user research before building a product, that is actually the proposition side. So it's basically at the end of all this methodology, did we actually add value to the end customers? In this case, the answer is yes. In fact, 67% of the users that had fund in Coinrule, despite the market crash with COVID-19 in February, they were actually in profit. And that was a very important statistic because the average in the industry is like few percentage less than that. So already like raising the bar, it's already a good achievement. It means that we are going in the right direction. Now, how do we do all this user research testing? We are pretty obsessed about that, and we do user testing. As I said, here we track everything down. We track the age, nationality. We have several topics that we ask during the interviews, and we do funnel interviews where we start with very generic questions, and then we go drill down with more detailed questions, and also we do follow-up questions at the end, and we give a lot of space for also question for the users. Also, we allow them to express themselves by long moment of silence. Sometimes, by feeling them, making feel them a little bit awkward because they don't know what to say. But by doing that, they really start talking more and more, and they open up and actually really tell you what they think about the product, that interaction, and the proposition. And you can also observe hidden behaviors. In fact, we observe always the interview. It's always two of us observing them. One for observing the non-verbal communication, one for the verbal one. And then we put all this knowledge into, we found like specific behavior that are common across groups of users. We put them into this map. where the goal here is to actually extrapolate the user needs. So we have the main problem that was an assumption that we had at the beginning, an hypothesis that we wanted to validate or invalidate. Then we go and elaborate a user need that capture at least a group of users with the core feedback. We tag them so we know at least what are the topics, and also we prioritize them. So here we have how many times a user mentioned this specific thing. So as you can see, sometimes like 50 plus people mentioned something like they want access to profitable rules and quick setup templates. So in that case, we saw that the template library for the strategy was really needed. That's very, very obvious and clear. But sometimes the most difficult one are the one that are usually middle priority, and there is not a big quantity of user mentioning it. So you never know if then the proposition it's worth to develop or not. Then after that, we come up with solutions. Sometimes the solution can be on the usability side, on the accessibility side, on the technical side, on the design side. So there is like several dimensions that you can activate to solve a specific problem. It's not just one. And the best thing before spending time in implementation is actually to do a lot of prototyping and mock-upping, because 1 hour more in research saves you 10 hours of implementation. And implementation, it's much more expensive. You have engineers, and once it's built, it's built. It's like set in stones. Then after we have, let's say, we did a 3 solution and we test them, kind of light touch testing on 3 of them, then we follow and actually make a decision, strategic decision, if that feature will go in the roadmap or not. And the roadmap, it's basically driven by users. So if it's totally driven by users and totally designed first. So as you can see here, in January, we released the new trading arbiter that is the backend of our application. And since then, we have acquired 13,000 users. Now we're working very hard to build the simplest backtesting in the world. It's very like strange that in 2020 there's not a simple way to test if your strategy works or would have worked in different market conditions. Yeah, I cannot really understand why is that. All the solutions we have seen are built for professional traders. For professional traders, there's nothing like for normal people like that. Then, you know, we're building a marketplace because we saw there is the community element that's very important. And that's also what made eToro very, very famous. And then we also expanded traditional assets for that's more like commercial need than actually user need. And there is also then a touching base on DeFi. So this is the very big roadmap. And now I want to talk also like one previous project that I did with the Paylinko. I'm not going to talk about the methodology we followed here. This was a virtual point of sale POS on mobile for trader, installers, plumbers, like more like real people that work on the street, and they're always like going from house to house all day long. Sometimes the problem is that the customer wants to pay like, I don't know, like something like £600 because they just installed a new boiler, but they don't have any machine to get a card payments, and the customer does their £600 in cash. So in that case, they can use Paylinko. Now here, to understand the needs, we did one thing that was very interesting. I basically spent 3 days with a plumber near Stevenage. I went all around helping him like fixing houses, installing like meters and boilers. And I understood so many things like doing his interaction. And I was able to do what's called a day in a life of a plumber, for example. And one thing that no one realizes is that a plumber between works is always in a car with an headphone. So I see most of the apps, for example, in this case, they require really him like to read stuff and to press button, where probably in that case, a conversational UI, something like Alexa or something like Google or Siri would have much helped him, because he was really always on the road. And he was always going around with his paper and pen and in different situations for different works. So we actually found out many things, but the main one was that quoting was the main problem. Quoting for work while you're transiting from one place to another, that was the main user need. So we have user needs, but I won't bore you with this one. And then how does that relate with crypto? So that's related with crypto by opposition. So in crypto, what we found also with Coinrule, and now this is something that we are trying to solve, is that people are really scared to share personal data. And there is a reason, because we're talking about your personal finances, money, and there are a lot of hackers online, that, and also because it's an immature market. That brought us a lot of challenges in terms of understanding behaviors of more high-end customers. So for example, now we are looking at B2B proposition We need to talk with big funds that are moving millions of millions, and they are very like opposite to sharing with us the story or how they do things. And we found it also that it's also true for like small traders. So as a typical startup, what you want to do, you want to kind of optimize and increase your SEO, search engine optimization. So one typical thing that a social network or social apps do is they make public users profile. So by having that, you can have thousands of pages of users profile online on Google with several tags, several keywords. So you can actually rank very well on Google. But what we found that our traders were totally opposite to that. They really value privacy. They really don't want to share how much money they have in the wallet. They don't want to share what they're doing. They don't even want to share a badge that says that you are a good trader or bad traders. They don't want to share the strategy, nothing. So from this one, like typical, I figured out after like a few months that doing typical social media activities or SEO activities with crypto traders, it's really just not doable. And that's the same for if you want to do real user research where you actually understand the big amounts of money, how they get traded and in which way. And I see that's what's driven bad UX and bad usability in cryptocurrency. And if you go on Reddit, you can find a lot of these topics, why the dApps and the UI are so poor. It's not that they're so poor, I would say. It's mostly that they have a kind of identity crisis. Like they started with that kind of aesthetics and of the paradigm of Reddit or Dropbox, for example. So Dropbox, you know, it's a I don't know if you remember the design from Dropbox, but it's very simple and in itself it's a style, but you know, it's usable, but it's kind of mostly invisible. From crypto, it's the same. It's invisible, it's always black, and this app have a specific kind of new age or also new wave type of aesthetics that sometimes doesn't fit with the typical fintech customer that want to approach cryptocurrency. So at the moment, you have like all sorts of approaches to the products. You have the Luna ones that are like very proper. They look a little bit more like Revolut and they work like that. But at the same time, they cannot add advanced features because otherwise the user will get scared because they are so super simple. And that's fine. But it means that Luna to adopt, you know, something like DeFi, to adopt some more like advanced concept like staking, like farming, like yield arbitrage, it will take time because by the nature, by the structure of the interface of the app, it cannot kind of inject and offer to the user some sort of complicated feature because also the actual branding and design doesn't allow that. On the other side, you got Matcha that got released like a month ago. It's an aggregator of DeFi dApps. So it's already like 3-4 elements that someone has to kind of get familiar with in order to understand what actually this website does. It's amazing, and it's like also the aesthetic kind of goes towards really the dream and mostly like gummy and soft approach. So this one is kind of very retail focused, but still it's talking about something that on the back end I'm saying it's not really mature enough. And then there was this other project, I think it's called Aluna. And it kind of got me really confused because I knew this very good designer that was in London, and he was working for Nike, Adidas, like beautiful project, amazing work. And now since like last year, he's working for this project Aluna, and there was he did this interface, and I was like, I'm a bit confused. Like, you know, you used to do such usable stuff and cool stuff, and now you're doing these things that are very anonymous and doesn't have a strong identity. And he was. And I understood that he was basically trying to, from inside, try to change what's the crypto aesthetics as well from an internal point of view by going closer to the computer science community and engineering community, because then it's difficult to bring them out. And then also the nature of the product is very advanced. But still, I think like the cryptocurrency projects are a little bit in an identity crisis, and they need to bring more user experience guys into the space and more user research in order to understand the user needs and to build products that are more usable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. That was very interesting. Covered a lot of interesting topics, I think, and said also a lot about how we work at Coinrule. So let's move to questions. Do we have any questions so far? Anyone here who has any questions?
I'm gonna move back so you have some ideas.
Feel free to write them into the chat, or just unmute yourself and speak, because we don't have that many people on here. Maybe.
David speaking. I have a question. So very interesting project. Thank you very much for taking us through that. And I feel sort of out of breath and a bit stunned from from the whole thing. What started you on a Coinrule project, or started the team on it? Who had the idea, and where did it come from, and how did you get together?
Yeah, so the first idea was not actually the one that we're working on, was actually a different one. Basically, I was like accumulating some crypto because I wanted to buy a house, and actually I bought the house thanks to crypto. But I was using Blockfolio, and the Blockfolio I could not have a goal for my portfolio. So I would have, like, my need was to have 2-3 portfolios of cryptos, but with goals. So, like, you know, house in London, this. And then I started sketching some interfaces for an app that was kind of setting a goal, a little bit like a financial planner, but for crypto, but mostly for like Blockfolio basically. And then I was thinking about the stuff, and then also I was with an ex-colleague in a Christmas party when I was still contracting for the British government, the Ministry of Justice, and this guy came to me, and he was using IG Index, and he managed to build a script that will buy every day the best coin for 24 hours, then resell it and buy the best coin, and then on the FTSE 100. So by doing that, in 1 year, he gained like something like 10x. So he did like 10x the amount. He started with 1,000 literally, and then he had 10,000 in his bank account. And then it kind of really clicked with me, and I started then to modify this Blockfolio type of application to something more automated. I'm still talking about like sketches and actually visual interfaces. And then at that time I was still on Paylinko, my previous project, and we were part of the Mass Challenge Accelerator, and Oleg was also part of that. And Oleg really wanted to talk with me. Like, I was like, yeah, let's catch up, let's have a coffee, you know, because he's very good with the networking. And I was super stressed having a day job and then going at night with my previous startup to work. So at some point then I managed to find some time, and then basically the idea for Coinrule was born, you know, with us brainstorming basically. I just had these sketches, but then yeah, the idea of that need really resonated with him. I resonated also with our first user that we interviewed. And really, and that's where we started.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I see Leslie.
I've got a question. So you've obviously taken some very good market research techniques, you know, that you've used in larger companies and applied them to this startup situation. What were the biggest challenges that you found?
From moving the techniques, okay. So I think the challenges are like different challenges. So when you work for a big corporation or for the government, you have like a set budget, and for example, even the recruitment, user research, it's much more easy. I mean, you need to have more kind of a kind of partnership relation with your vendor. You need to use a recruitment agency. You pay a lot for each session, so you need to really be careful. You need to have a lot of preparation before having one day full of user research with at least 4 people. You need to book the lab. So it's like real money going. I think like calculation with the British government spends around I think £700 per person to the user research, between, like, you know, the incentives you give to the person, the lab booking, the preparation and stuff. So in that case, it was good and bad. So it was good because, you know, someone external will really find the right profile that you want to interview according to which stage of the research you are. So it was amazing. And you had the proper lab, proper registration, proper recording. You had 3 people, one taking notes, one interviewing and one observing. So it was very good. But on the other side, you cannot do all the kind of the guerrilla activities or like the kind of the out of the box activities. I was trying to do that sometimes, but it was very difficult in terms of compliance, in terms of policies, internal policies. And then if you go in startups, it's totally opposite. So you have a total freedom because you don't have many processes. So you can build your own process, your own methodology, you can experiment. But at the same time, you don't have that budget to actually reach out to specific people. So you need to be more creative in engaging people. So, and that's, I'm talking about like before you have a product. When you have a product live, you have some users. So actually you can ask users, and that kind of the game changes a lot. It's actually amazing. But then before that moment, it's really difficult to find the right people for you. I mean, cryptocurrency traders, with at least $10,000, that are really passionate, are quite difficult to find. So you need to go in meetups and need to really go out of your comfort zone to find them and to talk to them. But I would say that on one side you have freedom and low budget. On the other side you have constraints, more budget, but very streamlined processes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have more questions? Everyone is a bit shy.
So I have a question actually for everyone, if it's possible.
Of course.
So I would say what do you think, with this project from IFE, I really like it. And I mean, I'm just thinking which team, which blockchain project will actually be able to develop something like this, to actually adopt this use case and bring it to life.
Sorry, which use case is that? I think I missed that.
It's about sharing data and being able to share data with several. I mean, ideally, some projects need to be interoperable. I mean, Solana, for example, Solana is very good for high-frequency traders because it's fast. Polkadot, it's good because interoperability. So ideally, something like Polkadot could be better because then you can exchange data, your personal data across chains and still keep control of them. But Ethereum now could be also an option because of the wide adoption. But then, if you know any other blockchain that's more focused on the use of data and the actual permission of data, also with the GDPR, that will be good to implement it.
Anyone wants to jump in? I can maybe just add quickly. There was one project called Enigma, which I think at least used to be really data focused. It was supposed to be like a data marketplace, but I think they've since pivoted. And I was very curious recently to understand why, because it actually goes back to your point. It's kind of, they tried to make the data use case work, but it didn't seem to have really worked. Maybe it's just, it needs to be much more mainstream before people really pick that up.
There was another project, another crypto project called Datum, D-A-T-U-M, which again tried to do something along these lines a couple of years ago and has subsequently pivoted, but the same guy is still there.
Cool, I'll check it out. Thank you. Datum is data. Cool.
One question for me actually. What would you say is something that many user experience researchers or user researchers miss? Like what is the thing that people in the field usually get wrong?
That's a good question, because I think it's the vanity aspect. So user research usually comes from a psychology background or from a design background. If they come from a psychology background, they get too much involved with behavioral science, and they are not really so tech savvy to be connected with the tech community. If they are like coming from a pure artistic or design background, they get stuck into the vanity of wanting to do always beautiful things and on the emotional side. So they do a little bit of functional instructional design, but they don't really like it. They find it boring, and they get stuck in that. So they don't want to get involved with the dirty engineers doing something like life-changing or like revolutionary, just because there's not that vanity aspect. So I think that's what means that. But you find then that the good designers, like the one that actually overcome this vanity aspect, they are the one that actually really gives a lot of value back to the business community and the marketing community.
Thank you. We have a question from David again. David, do you want to just ask yourself?
Yeah, sure. How do you acquire new customers? How long have you been going for? How have you been acquiring new customers? What's been the most successful method? For
Coinrule?
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite a good question, actually. It's like, we built a growth hack there was coming again from. So basically, I get most of the tips and the suggestions from other entrepreneurs. You know, I found talking to them is much better than talking to any mentor. You always recommend everyone to talk to other founders. Yeah. So this guy told me like about this agency that was doing thousands of landing pages. And then it was driving traffic. So we had a proprietary technology now in Coinrule where in a programmatically way, this script generates thousands of very good content that capture keywords of coins, exchanges, strategies, and they rank very well on Google. Some of them are like on the first page, on the first position of Google for free. And I'm talking about like 120,000 landing pages in 7 different languages that are always built continuously. With this trick, we drive immense traffic to our website, and actually already few digital marketing agencies asked us to sell the script, but we are not selling it because I mean we need it first, and second, like it's not our business. So yeah, it's just a byproduct. Maybe if this venture fails, maybe we may pivot on that. I mean, I already bought the domain actually. It's called leadgen.com. But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, growth up. We read this book called The Traction, where they are like, actually, Oleg read it first, and then I read it after him. And it's like he lists 52 channels of acquisitions, and it's like once you find your channel that works, just hack the hell out of it. Like, and then we found an SEO, but kind of landing page SEO. Yeah, our good marketing channel. Now we activated also a good affiliate program with the CJ. That's working very well, but with affiliates you never know what they bring you, because yeah, they just like make a lot of offers, and then they bring you like unprofiled customers and that. So one guy now from Brazil is advertising our product on what's called Incent. Okay. And yeah, it's basically it's a platform that plays advertising within the video games. So you can find our advertising in Fortnite, in Minecraft, all these beautiful games. And these people are just kids, they don't have money, right? So they actually, and this affiliate guy was offering $50 for each sign up. So of course we had like huge traffic from Brazil in one day, but there were people just coming in for the $50 and they were not trading and then going away. And then after we figured out because it was because of this affiliate guy.
Any questions? Any more questions, comments, observations, thoughts?
I have a very quick question for Gabriele, actually. Thank you for introducing me to your product. My name is Andrew Bruff. I'm from IOTA Foundation. Looks like a really nice product. One of the things that we're working on, we're really passionate about, is good usability with decentralization. And one of the biggest challenges we find is the fact that there is no kind of DNS resolver on a second layer to make sending and receiving more usable. So in other words, to abstract away address strings. And that's a real barrier for those who don't know how to use them, and also the flow that's involved with address strings, with copy pasting, and also errors that might happen in that. So I think that's, regardless of what you're working in within a decentralized solution, that's a really important thing to solve to really get this to the next level and make this more usable for everyday people that may not be familiar. I just wondered if this is something that you've encountered at all with your solution, whether you found any kind of way around this and remaining decentralized. And if you have any thoughts about it of your own, really.
I mean, in terms of human error with user interface, it has been there forever, this problem, and we never go away. I mean, till we turn into robots. So there is the typical problem where the user type his password into the ID box, and then everyone sees his password. That's always happening still nowadays. We had the similar problem. Was one of my first work 10 years ago. Was with in a anti-tapping phone company that were doing software for like encryption to prevent anti-tapping. And and most of the time people would just not activate because by law you're required to activate the software before the call. They were not activating it, so of course the call was clear for everyone to hear. And that's still, you know, it was a human error. And no matter how many design, UI trick or usability testing you do, there's always going to be that element. And I think by transposition, also DeFi, since then DeFi is like a new technology, the technology is changing, but humans are still humans, and they're much slower than technology. I think that problem will always be, will always be there. It's funny to say, but yeah, humans sometimes are the problem instead of technology being the problem. So it's the human that is kind of the wrong behavior. But still, that's why we have to design products, you know, around humans and not the way around. That's something that we miss sometimes. But yeah, we are human and we need to interact with technology. So technology needs to come towards us. I hope I replied to your question.
Yeah, thanks, Gabriele. It's interesting to have your input on that. And I think there are many things that we need to overcome. And I think you've mentioned a lot of them. And part of what we're having to work with is, unfortunately, we can have very, idealistic approaches to UX. The challenge is working with the technology that we have and trying to shape the technology and working with the developers to then integrate technology that can then enable better front ends and better usability. And I think you alluded to that earlier on with the designer that you're working with.
I mean, I'm sure if we go fast forward 50 years, there is all the transhumanist movement that really kind of try to get machine and human beings closer to each other by having like a little bit of artificial memory injected or some sort of element. I'm sure it will happen at some point, and it will facilitate those interactions. But till that point, we need to actually cope with our organic nature.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. There's a question from Sanjay. Hey, Gabriele, are you looking for funding? Happy to talk later.
Actually, yeah, we have actually it's a yes, no, actually today we launched the campaign on Seedrs live, and yeah, so we haven't slept for the last 3 days, me and Oleg. So it's all the preparation. The funny thing is, like, we were in private mode and we already reached 100% of the campaign. So we had to decide if we had to raise more, and we said yes, let's raise more. Why not? Let's allow other people to join the fundraise and buy more shares. So actually, yeah. So we are planning to fundraise up to 200%. That will be $500,000 raise, and yeah. So that's the link. You can do directly on Seedrs, or if you want to invest like a much bigger amount, then you need to wait. I think probably like January or February when Seedrs is finished. But I mean, Seedrs is amazing. There's also a secondary market. That's something that I always recommend everyone to use. So if you buy some shares of any startup on Seedrs, after 3 months, you can already sell it or try to sell it to a secondary market with a 20-30% premium. So it means that you don't need to wait a typical 5 to 10 years exit or like, wait that the company goes IPO, but you can just take profit already after a few months. So it's actually, I mean, I like that platform. It's very good. Also, CrowdCube. Actually, now they're joining. Seedrs and CrowdCube are going to join in the one big platform, the biggest in Europe.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? Following up with some people here in the chat as well. I think we are also coming to the half-hour mark, so we can slowly, Devon, shall we slowly move into like the open discussion part?
Sure, we have about 5 minutes left of the call. So if there's anything you guys want to discuss about what's going on in the industry at the moment, this would be the time to do it. So yeah, if there's any open topics on your guys' mind, if anyone wants to introduce a topic for debate or discussion, anything interesting happening that caught your attention?
In terms of DeFi, last week I've been trying a lot of different tools like Pickles. I tried Sushi, what's called Sushi Swap, and I saw that at the beginning they give you always a lot of returns, right? Huge returns, but then they go down after a few days. So I don't know if it's really worth to farm at this stage, because within a few days they really go very, very low. What do you guys think? Do you trust those projects?
The DeFi space, I think, holistically is quite fast moving and fast paced, and it's difficult to trust any particular project. There was that I know when sushi swaps came out, there was that instance of a rug pull for a few days as well, but then he gave everything back.
Yeah, and the guy from what was Solana or FTX got involved, and they gave much more credibility to the project.
I haven't actually checked what's happening with SushiSwap lately. Does anyone have any updates on that project?
It's kind of, I mean, it's kind of lost a bit the public attention, I think. It's kind of just been slowly declining. I'm not also sure what's been happening with the price.
Out of interest, would you guys on the call be interested in like a DeFi run through or a DeFi 30-minute breakdown of what's going on in the space? What are the current projects like sushi, yam, all of the other crypto vegetables that are currently being mined? Because there's so much going on, and I know it's like impossible to keep up because it always changes. Like 3 days and you're already out of date. So
and the other night I found something like, what was it, leverage? So it's like farming on leverage. So
liquidity mining is quite a big one as well. So
yeah,
we could maybe do for the next Crypto Mondays, if you guys are interested, we could maybe do like a breakdown of like what is liquidity mining, how to do yield farming. You guys,
yeah, absolutely.
I vote for it. Yeah,
cool. I think that would be a fun one.
I think your problem will be getting it into an hour. We have an interesting chat.
We recently did a pretty compact version and a lean coffee in our team. We managed, okay, it's an hour and a half, but it's a good discussion. So if we can make it maybe like an open source content, so I can introduce some topics and give some examples and show some examples, and then you guys can jump in as well with your thoughts.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, actually. There are a couple of things also. I mean, I've been investing and quite degenerate on some of these opportunities in the last few months, like I think all of us. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things we can throw in.
Yeah, we can even go through the latest vocab and stuff, because like degenerates and degens.
Exactly. It's a world on its own, isn't it?
It's a whole world. I feel like we slipped and fell down a crypto rabbit hole within the crypto rabbit hole. So it'd be great to bring that back up to the ground level. What else is going on in the space? Anything happening with the big companies and enterprise? Let me take a quick check.
I mean, there's been all this news about publicly listed companies starting to buy Bitcoin for their treasury. Like, that's actually huge news. I mean, you have Square, which bought, I think, something like 50 or 60 or 70 million with their treasury. Because it's a publicly listed company, it means that their board must have had to approve it, which is quite big news that they were comfortable with that. And you had a couple other companies doing that as well. So that's for the space. I think that's a huge news. Like few years, 1-2 years ago, completely unimaginable.
True, and I think also that move from Square has kind of stabilized the price of Bitcoin. So it's pretty good. Also, another thing I noticed is that Coinbase has sent an email to everyone saying that is passing on the data to HRMC if you have more than £5,000 holding on Coinbase. That's very interesting because it means that the government is actually working closely with the crypto companies now to tax.
For better or for worse. Yeah, that's actually another good call topic for another time. Taxes and crypto. Are we all gonna go to prison at some point or not? Okay, it's 7:30. Unless there are any final comments, questions, or asks, I would say it's a good time to close the call. And thank you so much, Gabriele, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for everyone for listening and attending.
Thank you all. If you have any topics or suggestions for future meetups, or if you have any interesting news, please drop it in the Telegram channel. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking, what you guys are working on as well. It would be great to see what you guys are up to. So yeah, thank you all for joining as well, and thank you Oleg for hosting, and Gabriele for your presentation. It was great.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
everyone.
So much.
Thank
Bye.
you. It's really
Bye.
good.
Bye.
Everyone.